and over and over again in the next 5 years. If the law has to change, then it will change. Oh no, to your right. No, this way. No. I think we. No. I think we.
This is my right.
Oh no. I think you should be okay. You guys adjust yourselves rather than us. Otherwise,
we can also adjust, right? But we'll be going in the wrong direction.
Right.
His right is our left.
Right. Slide. So once again, in the Zimbabwean election, we are back in Harare, where we are looking at matters that most people have not been aware of. The latest is with the Constitution of Zimbabwe that was agreed in 2013, has a provision that some of the members of the Senate will represent people with disabilities. And there is a separate process in how those people are elected as a quota. And I have with me a very important guest indeed. I've got Lindiwe Swanda, who is representing as a delegate part of the election process, representing Bulawayo, the second biggest city in the country. And I also have Masimba Kuchera, and both of them have agreed to enlighten Zimbabweans who were not aware of how that process works and why it is important, and also our main people as the foreign media. Now, let me begin with you, Kuchera. Most people don't know that there's this provision in the Constitution. Do you think it was important for there to be people representation specifically for these constituents?
I think it was a product of a lot of campaigns, but also a lot of communication and conversation with the people who are making the constitution. Now, basically, people with disabilities constitute up to about 2 million. The United Nations on average estimates that it could be around 15% of a population. So a constituency like that would require representation. So that's why then we have that section, if I'm not mistaken, 120 in the Constitution, that then stipulates that there will be 2 senators representing persons with disabilities, 1 male and 1 female. So their term runs in the same course as the rest of the term of the senators, and then they also get to sit in the Senate.
Right. So Lindiwe Swanda, you were telling me some time back that just having 2 senators is not enough with respect to what is needed. What do you think should happen now that the MPs have an opportunity to look again at the Constitution?
To me, to have 2 senators, to me, is not very important. We have got 10 provinces here in Zimbabwe. So do you think that I can say that the database of people with disabilities here in Zimbabwe about 2 million, with only 2 senators, without having MPs? We know that actual laws that are coded at the parliament. So senators that they're able to implement what is already coded from the parliament.
Right. Let me come back to you, Kuchera, and say when people are asking, of course there are laws in the United Kingdom. I'm familiar with those laws in Europe, in America, and other places. Here in Zimbabwe specifically, what are the issues that require that specific representation for these particular constituents?
Okay, so the key here is self-representation. Listeners and viewers must know that it's not possible to whip more than the bereaved. it can never happen. So it's important to be represented so that the issues affecting people with disabilities can be looked at. So when you go to local authorities, look at how public buildings are structured in this country. Some of them do not have any ramps, so people with physical impairments cannot access. When you look at the opportunity for employment, that's also very lacking for people with disabilities. When you look at representation in, say, parastatals or even government boards, that is also lacking for persons with disabilities. So there are a number of issues, social issues and economic issues, to do with persons with disabilities that can never be fully represented by someone who does not have a disability. And by the way, what Lindy was saying, is it not an injustice to have two people representing 2 million? That's underrepresentation. And so there needs to be also a way to balance that out. That's why we talk about self-representation in all forms of governments. So we talk about the local authority, which is local government. Now we are talking or hearing about the provincial councils, that they may be constituted. There should also be representation there, but also in terms of parliament. But we are also looking at statutory bodies, government statutory bodies, like the parastatals and so on. Some of the policy gaps that we have in several ministries are as a result of not having that representation within the crafting of the policy.
Right, Lindiwe, the last minister that was dealing with it was Joshua Malinga from your town, former mayor of Bulawayo, and it was a reminder for a lot of people what issues the people with disability encounter when Joshua Malinga was at a rally where a bomb went off in Bulawayo. Those that could ran away for their lives. He was left on stage in a wheelchair with nobody to help him. So if you were looking at examples where women with disabilities in this country have been affected by issues that can be raised, what could you tell our viewers?
I think Zimbabwe as a whole is not friend with people with disabilities, I can say. Because we can find that where there are issues of people with disabilities, they don't address them in a proper way. And in Zimbabwe, that's why I'm saying to people of Zimbabwe that are not friends with people with disabilities. Can you highlight to me, do you know that people with disabilities, they don't have a police, but animals, they do have a police? So it seems that it seems people with disabilities are not important in Zimbabwe, but animals are better than, even snakes, they do have a police, but people with disabilities don't have a police. If there was a police, Malinga was going to be assisted there. But there's no police which protect people with disabilities. We're always put to any other business.
Right. So there are quite a number of things. Kuchera, back to you. When I was in school, I was taught Braille. The reason I was taught Braille is because they said I was one of the sharpest students in my class. And next to me sat some of the candidates you were looking at today who needed assistance and they needed other students to help. How is the education system in Zimbabwe, and how can it be improved to assist people with disabilities?
There's a lot that can be done within the education system. For instance, when you talk about education for people with disabilities, it's still lacking behind. Most of it is done by your special schools or missionary schools. There's not been any integration into the mainstream system, which I think is key going forward. That everyone has to understand disability from that point of view. One of the things that we should also take note of is that out of the 16 languages that we have, sign language is one of them, and there are very few people who can communicate in sign language. So going forward, it's important for the education system to start integrating some of these concepts into their curriculum, so that persons with disabilities can learn not only at the schools that our missionaries like Margaret Hugo and Henry Murray started all those centuries ago, but they can also learn at a school in the high-density suburb or wherever they can afford to go. So that provision is not there, and that the education system at the moment has not trained as many teachers to be able to cope with persons with disabilities. But I think that going forward, it's one of the areas, it's one of the key areas, because when you then mix people with disabilities and people without disabilities, you are also able to cause a culture shift and a thought shift as a result of us playing together, which sometimes comes not easily to someone who then interacts or encounters someone with a disability at a later stage.
Right. If I was to ask you to read,
can I add something?
yes, madam.
I'm from Blawayo. Do you know how many grade schools at Blawayo? In Blawayo, there's Market in St. Bernard's. There's no secondary school. It's Matewele North. There is none. It's Matewele South. It's Manama, Chavez. I think that's all. But we can find people with disabilities every province, every city. That's why I'm saying that people with disabilities, they're not taken serious in Zimbabwe. They don't put a serious look to this sector.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, Lindy, now that you are raising those issues, and just to say, do you pay your way if you are traveling by bus, by taxi, or anything?
I do pay. Like what happened yesterday, I traveled from Blawayo to Harare. I was supposed to come with a Brab in the morning. Then I delayed. Then I ended up coming in the afternoon yesterday. Then I was supposed to pay. I paid penalty. Then when I came here, I tried. I was saving tickets. I was saving receipts. When I tried to explain to ZEC, they said we don't. Why? It's your own fault because we are the one who did it. We don't pay for that. And now I encounter some difficulties of paying more money, which is supposed to be paid, because they refuse to pay me ZEC. I think people with Zimbabwe, I think 99 of Zimbabweans are friends with the people with disabilities. Because if you try to explain what we encounter almost every day, they don't take it seriously. They will take it. They take it as a burden or a bad omen or a case. They don't consider what to say.
Right. So Kuchera, she was just explaining some of the difficulties. I will tell you that in Europe, where I live, where I've lived for the past 2 decades plus, people with disabilities don't pay through their way. They've got cards, and the state foots the bill. Whether it is transport, it is parking, it just doesn't matter what that is. And people will be surprised that a country like Zimbabwe is not doing that at the moment. What do you think needs to be done, or what is the message that can go to the new government as it comes in?
Well, there are 2 issues that people need to be aware of. The Ministry of Social Services does have a provision that they can give to some persons with disabilities for travel and also for medical incidents. But the greatest limitation is found in 2 of our sections, Section 22 and Section 83 of our Constitution. These are some of the sections that talk about disability directly. And the sections clearly stipulate that the state will, within the limits of resources available to it, do A, B, and C. So when a state gives a resource conditions, a state like Zimbabwe, you need to pay for the police cars, you need to pay for the ministers and the MPs' new vehicles before you can think about disability. You need to pay for any other thing that you can think of before you think disability. So that is the challenge that we have, that our laws are also not structured in a way that are fully accommodative to persons with disabilities. Hence, you may have or may not have caught up with the talk that we want domestication of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which is a UN standard of looking at disability and also in terms of advising states how they should deal with disability. So on paper, those provisions are there, but when you then go to the ministry, there is nothing available because resources are never allocated to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I
okay, like, from what said, I think look at the constitution, Zimbabwean constitution. When they come to disability issues, they will say if funds permit. Funds will never permit, so that they will never consider. I think they will never consider disability issues. When they come to people with disabilities, if funds permit.
Okay.
So they're trying to underline that they will never consider issues of people with disabilities.
Okay. So do you? What about the suggestion made by others that there should be a levy that should be looking after 2 million of the citizens of this country, Linda?
They will say, yeah, funds when funds permit. Funds will never permit. I think if maybe another country, if they introduce the law to Zimbabwe, because Zimbabwe seems is a rigid country to consider people with disabilities issues. It's not friendly. That's why I said it's a rigid country to consider people with disabilities issues.
Okay, for the benefit of the local viewers in Zimbabwe, although we are a European channel, we also have others that are broadcasting that are from Zimbabwe, specifically for the Zimbabwean audience. So if I can start with you, Lindiwe, you speak in a native language to communicate with that section of the community on what the issues are, what you have done today in Harare at ZEC, in brief, and just what you think is the way forward.
I think people they can.
No, in Ndebele.
In Ndebele. Okay, ngibona ngani abantu eZimbabwe nxa bengaba lama bengayaziswa into ezinjalo bengenza ngcono kule government yethu le. Abantu they can be baptized better than what government is doing to people with disabilities.
Yeah, kodwa ngicela utshela abantu ukuthi ulandeni ngapha, wenzeni, ungubani, njalo lokho okwenzayo ngani usithi wena kuqhakathekile.
Lapha ngizovota ngizovotela ama-senators angu-2 but angisafisi ukuthi uyenze vote ngendlela abangiphathe ngayo ukuthi ngibona angisafisi angizange ngiphathe kahle lapha ngoba imali engigade ngayo i-ZEC thona injani ayisambhadali kodwa maningi ama-receipt kule authentic evidence bathi bona abasanjani abasambhadali futhi ngibonani vele ama-senator asincede ama-MPs wengasincede ngoba imithetho yonke iphekwe eParliament. So i-senator vele anti ngabantu ababehlezi khona ngale bengakwa be-consider into ikhulunywe eParliament mayithi eParliament ngoba besikhulunyelwe mali.
Yeah, uthi thina kodwa abantu abanye babengakwazi ukuthi utsho obani lingobani lina elidinga ukukho.
Intsho thina abantu abakhubazekileyo anje kumele athi sinjani sibe labantu abasipresenta ngapha eParliament ngalama senator besepheka sebepheka ngemithetho yabe siphekwe ngaphuthi eParliament abantu besefake ama-signatures kuphela ngale manje ngavele singeke behle basithiya from isiqalisa ungathi mfowethu upheka isitrala kuthi siphawulunga wasesiphekwe manje uyabukwazi ukuthi ama-ingredients asimele yakho bekwakho. So I just started from the start isiconsider ngoba ngibona ikho ngawusebenza bekuvele mina ngibona ngosebenzela.
Okay, Kucher, there are a lot of people that speak Shona. So if you can, in the same way, explain to them as well why you are here, what you have done, why what you've done is important, and what is the way going forward.
Ndingakuti nyaya yatauya kuzongetichishanda panapa yanga iri yekuvhotera masenators maviri anonzi nebumbiro remutemo anofanira kunge aripo evanhu vakaremara, murume umwe chete nemudzimai mumwe chete. Saka ndo zvatanga tauya kunoita. Zvakakosha panyaya mbiri dzekuti chekutanga tizadzisa zviri pamutemo, asi chechipiri tinenge tichida kuti pange pane kumiririrwa kuseneti. Nyaya yatinotaura ndeyekuti kumiririrwa ngakusagumira kuseneti chete, toda kuti zvinge zvichidzika pasi, kungava kuparliament, kungava kulocal government, taakunzwa kuti kune maprovincial councils, nomaparastatals imomo, kune dzimwewo nzvimbo dzinenge dzichida kuti tinge tichimiririra, asi tinoda kuti ikoko kuseneti tinge tichimiririrwa zvakare nevanhu vaviri vane madisabilities kana tikati vakaremara.
Right, thank you very much, both of you. Now I have interviewed the presidential candidates in this election, the members of parliament, representatives of different sectors, including top economists. But I would say this is one of the most important interviews that we have held. It is about the representation of people with disabilities in Zimbabwe. I was talking to two delegates who came to elect two senators that are provided for in the Constitution of the Republic of Zimbabwe. They have done that, but they have also raised issues concerning why they believe that is important and what the issues are. I was talking to Lindiwe Swanda. She is a delegate from Bulawayo, the second largest seat in the country. I was also talking to Zimbabwe Chera, who is the other delegate. Thank you very much for watching. There will be more ZEC. They are coming back with some presidential results in this election. Stay tuned.